Welcome, everybody, to the Unstruggled Mindset Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Glenn. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. If you're on YouTube, I appreciate you very much. If you're on the audio version of the podcast, I appreciate you so very much. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Do me a favor, if you haven't yet, follow the podcast on your favorite podcast provider, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and click the little notification bell so you don't miss another podcast episode. I appreciate you guys so much for following the podcast. The only way we can grow is by you all following, and do me a favor and leave me a rating on your favorite podcast provider. That way the show gets shown to more and more people, the higher ratings we get. On today's episode, we are going to be going interspecies and our series of interspecies inspiration, the inspiration from our animal friends. Now, let's go ahead and dive on into this podcast episode. Now, imagine if you were to live your life with no legs, no arms. We literally couldn't survive, right? If we didn't have any arms, we couldn't eat because we can't use our hands. We can't drink because we don't have a hands to hold a cup or anything like that. If we don't have any legs, we can't walk. So our quality of life is very, very low. However, my favorite species, the snake, has no arms, no legs, and they are an apex predator in the animal kingdom. Why? Because they adapt. They know that they don't have any legs or arms. They don't even know what legs or arms are because they weren't born with them. It doesn't sit in their mind. They don't have arms or legs. How are they going to survive? No, the snake adapts because it will wrap its body around a prey item and completely suffocate it and then eat it whole. It just eats it whole. And if you've ever watched a snake eat, and I know there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I don't want to see a poor animal die. It's one of those things. It is part of the animal kingdom. But if you've ever watched a snake eat, it is one of the most miraculous things you're ever going to see in your life. They have no arms, no legs, but they use their entire body. They completely unhinge their jaw and move a rat, mouse, bird, whatever they're eating down their throat. You watch it go all the way down to its stomach. No arms, no legs, but they are still an apex predator in the animal kingdom. And that is something that is truly inspirational because as a human race, we can't even adapt. We have electricity. We have running water. We need clothes to run around. You can't run around naked. So adaptation for us is a high stretch when it comes to certain situations. If you throw us in the woods with no electricity, no Wi-Fi, no running water, some of us are going to die. It's just the way it is because we are not, as a human race, we are not set to where we have to adapt to anything. We are given just about everything we need. But the idea for this podcast episode came to me the other day because I was driving down the street and I was watching alongside my car. There was a bird that was flying down the sidewalk, and he would float and he would stop flapping his wings. But right before he would hit the sidewalk, he'd just flap and he'd come back up. And he continuously did that, just soaring all the way through the sidewalk. There's cars parked in their driveway along the sidewalk. He'd just go over it. How did he do that? Because he kept looking forward. The bird, when it's flying, doesn't look down. It doesn't look to the side. It's not distracted. It doesn't fall to any kind of distraction. It stays focused on what it's doing. It is flying its course. And if it looks away for even a second, that bird can end its life. It runs into a window. It runs into a building. It can run into a car. And how many times have you been driving down the street and you've seen a dead bird in the road? And it's one of the weirdest things because a bird can do that with such precision where it's flying and then it's right before it hits the ground, just flap its wings and it's gone. Flap its wings and it's gone. But what happens is the bird goes on the ground looking for food and becomes distracted from what's going on in the outside world because it's looking for that worm or it's looking for whatever it's eating, and bam, it gets ran over by a car. So the bird can adapt to its situation. It can adapt to its environment. However, that slight distraction from what it is doing can end its life. It can run into a building. It can get ran over by a car. Birds have wings. They can easily fly away and move out of the way of that car, but they're distracted. So for us, what that means is certainly if we get distracted, it's not going to end our life 100%. Of course, like if you're standing in the middle of a train tracks chasing a butterfly, maybe, but that's a very uncommon situation. I would think, I would hope. But when we get distracted from our goals and what we're doing, we're losing that quality of life. We're losing our goals. We're losing what those goals mean to us and what those goals can do for us. So from the bird, we learned that distractions can be deadly, not necessarily deadly for us, but it can be deadly for our dreams. It can be deadly for our goals, and it can be deadly for what we want our life to look like. If we become distracted, we settle for obsolete. We settle for common. We settle for, normal. And so many times we have the opportunity, we have the ambition, we have the possibility to be something abnormal, something extraordinary, but we don't, because we let distraction get in the way, and we fall into the normal category, and we live our normal lives. We go to our normal jobs, and we died in our normal graves. And that's just, it's sad to think about, but it's true. And it's all because of distraction. So from the bird, we learn that distractions can be deadly. Now, we're going to move on from the birds, and we're going to go to a much bigger animal. Now, let's go to the lion. Now, the lion, if you've ever been to a zoo, 9 times out of 10, you're going to go in and that lion's going to be asleep. That lion's going to be laying in the sun, knocked out cold, because lions know that they have to preserve their energy, because in order for them to get food, they can't just go to a restaurant and order a gazelle and then have it served to them. The lion has to work for its food. The lion has to chase that food, has to kill that food, and has to have the energy to digest that food. So the lion lays around all day long, knowing that it has to preserve its energy for that moment of survival. Now, for us, I'm not saying that we should be laying around all day and then preserving our energy for food. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying is, what we learn from the lion is we waste so much energy, and we waste so much time, and we waste so much potential on shit that doesn't matter, thing that's not bringing us any kind of benefit to our life whatsoever. We waste time on watching TV. We waste time on going out to restaurants and eating, and we waste time on, stupid stuff that we can be using so much more for potential to grow ourselves, to better our lives, and to live our goals and live out our dreams. So from the lion, we learn that we shouldn't be wasting our time. We shouldn't be wasting our energy. We should spend our energy on what matters, on what is going to be the biggest thing for us to survive. So yeah, I mean, that's it in a nutshell. For the lion, we preserve our energy for the things that matter. For a lion, there's really nothing else that matters besides eating and mating, and procreating their population, so the lion doesn't go extinct, which also takes a whole lot more energy. So we learn that from the great beast of the wilderness, the king of the jungle, if you may. Now, I'm not saying that, these are things that we need to take into consideration every single day, but it's something that we need to look into, and we need to learn from, and we need to grow from. And if you've ever heard the old saying, there's an old saying, it says, you can't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. Now, all animals are created differently. All animals have their strengths. Like I said, the snake, without arms or legs, kills its prey, eats its prey, digests its prey, everything. But a snake is also very limited, because most snakes cannot get cold. If they get cold, they'll die. And a lot of people say, a lot of people think that keeping snakes is so cool, and it's so badass to have snakes in your house. But really, snakes are basically just a poodle that you keep in a cage, because they have to maintain certain temperatures. They have to maintain certain humidity. They can't shed their skin properly if they don't have humidity. So adapting for a snake has its limitations, because as a snake keeper, it is my responsibility. I have their life in my hands. I have to provide them with food. I have to provide them with clean water. I had to provide them with the heat source. I had to provide them with humidity so they can shed their skin and they can grow and they can prosper. So with the snake, you can't, some of them are arboreal, some of them can climb a tree, but a fish can't climb a tree. Obviously, they can't live outside of water. However, the fish can also adapt because you have things like sharks and you have whales and things like that. Actually, whales are mammals, but you have fish that have adapted. And if you've ever watched the National Geographic or the Discovery Channel series about the deep ocean, where the sun doesn't shine, it's so far down that it's pitch black, and these animals, the fish that have the little light on their head, like that is an adaptation at its best. Fish, even though we don't see them as inspirational because they're just fish, they just swim around in the water, but they still have to survive. And like an octopus, it'll sit down flat on the ground on the bottom of the ocean floor, and it'll kind of blend into the rocks. That way, when its prey item comes by, it'll just jump up and snap it. Because if you let's say if you're walking through the street and there's a bear, you're not going to go towards that bear, because that bear could kill you, that bear will eat you, and things like that. Same thing. So the octopus knows that if it's just out in plain sight, floating around in the water, then it's not going to be able to catch its prey items, because the prey items are going to see that threat and they're going to run away, because that's how our brains work. Our brains work for survival no matter what species we are. So they, once again, adaptation. The octopus knows that it has to basically become a rock, look like a rock, and then it'll be able to eat. So we learn about adaptation from so many different species of animals, and it's a lot of things that we can quickly overlook it and quickly not process the information. But it's one of those things, like I said, as a snake keeper, as a keeper of reptiles, you watch these things and you learn these things and you become inspired. Inspiration is literally everywhere. Even animals as easy as simple as dogs and cats. Of course, for us, our fur babies, we feed them, we bathe them, we water them, we take them on walks, we make sure they get exercise and things like that. But there's stray dogs. They know that they're going to have to eat out of the garbage. They could sniff out that food. They know that they need to eat that food in order to survive. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to eat. So any animal in any situation is going to learn to adapt to their environment in order to survive. So I know I've thrown a lot at you, and I know it may sound confusing, but the bottom line is we can learn so much, and inspiration is truly everywhere we look. And it came to my mind as I was watching that bird just floating down the sidewalk. And every time, as soon as he was getting ready to smack into the concrete, he would just flap his wings and he'd go back up. And he would just maneuver in and out around cars and around people and everything else. And it was inspiring. It was truly inspiring to me. And it really gets the mind thinking, as a human being, as somebody with goals, ambitions, and dreams, how am I going to adapt to my environment in order to make that possible? Yes, distraction isn't 100% deadly for human beings, but it is deadly to our dreams. It is deadly to our goals, and it is deadly to our ability to take action every single day. So that's all I got for you on today's episode. So next time you're out and about, look around, watch your animal friends, watch the squirrels, watch the birds. You'll see what I'm talking about. If you really watch and pay attention, it's truly, truly inspiring the way animals adapt, and they know that every second is detrimental to their survival. So that's all. Thank you guys so very, very much for tuning into this episode. If you don't mind, share this on your social media with your friends and family. I appreciate that you got any kind of value whatsoever that you want to share it. The only way this podcast grows is by you all sharing it around social media and sharing it with your friends and family. And I appreciate you so much for helping us grow. I just knocked over my microphone. But you can tag me on Instagram at unstruggle_mindset, on Facebook at Abundant Life and Mind, and on Twitter at Unstruggle Mind. Appreciate you all so much. I hope you have a great day. Thank you.